Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be. For everyone out there listening across the crazy planet Earth, welcome to a brand new Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Bryan Willett, coming to you live from the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains on the September 7th, 2021. Tonight, I am very pleased to welcome back to Vestiges After Dark, Patti Negri. I know many of you have been waiting for this, and I am very excited. We're going to have a wonderful show, lots of great conversation. You don't want to miss it. Don't go away. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Vestiges After Dark. This is episode 5 of season 4, and we've been plugging away here, haven't we? It's been a fantastic season so far, and tonight is going to be just as wonderful. I can promise you that. We, again, have Patti Negri to talk about witchcraft, but also, you know, her journey into the paranormal and some of the interesting things that she will be doing along the way. You know, things that she has done, things that she's got coming up, as well as a lot of conversation about many of the things that are on your mind. We'll be opening lines in the second half of the show. So be sure to call in with your questions, comments, stories, anything that you'd like to tell us or Patti. You know, we're here for you tonight. And there's also going to be open chat room on YouTube. So if you have a question that, you know, maybe you don't feel like calling in, you just rather go to the chat, you can ask your questions in there, though I can't promise we're going to get to everyone because, you know, you get a lot of questions in the chat room. If you really want to have a guaranteed chance of talking to Patti tonight, I would suggest calling in. I think that would be the better way to do it. But we'll do our best to get to all of the questions. I'll try to be a little more attentive, and I know Sister Mary Joan always is. It's just we go off on tangents, and, you know, when we're having a good conversation, we don't really like to stop. It's just, you know, it's just not the way that we do things, right? You know, I mean, just kind of go with it. This is a organic show. It's a conversational show. I don't like it to be formal. I don't want it to be formal. But I do like the live aspect of it. I think it makes it exciting and engaging, and it allows you all to participate in it rather than just have some kind of pre-recorded episode. So this is going to be fantastic tonight. But first, before we get started, I'd like to just talk about a little thing that I noticed. We didn't really have a question. I usually take a question from somebody that, you know, sent me one over the past week that deserved a lengthy response. But tonight I saw this, and since there wasn't a question, I thought I'd talk about this to get us started. And I'm really kind of interested to see what Patti has to say about this, because it kind of goes into a lot of the work that both she and I do in the paranormal. And I think she's going to have some problems with it as well as I did. But I want to comment on this, and then we'll maybe discuss it today. And the question, the article is from Vox.com, and the title of the article is How Ouija Boards Work. Hint, It's not ghosts. And so already, you know, that caught my interest because it's like, okay, well, let's see what you have to say about this. So it says, demons will not possess you if you use one. And then it goes on with, I'm going to read a little bit from it. It's that time of year again, the season when paranormal entities come out to play. But if you're thinking about grabbing a Ouija board for your next conversation with the other side, you might want to think again. Despite their long history as hoax spiritualist devices turned into hit toys, turned into tools of the devil, Ouija boards won't actually put you in contact with demons or spirits. Any firsthand reports you might hear or read of real-life Ouija board horror stories are exaggerations, false claims, or a misunderstanding of how Ouija boards actually work. First of all, I'd like to know how they could draw that conclusion. I mean, there's no sources here. How could anybody definitively say with such a statement like that, that they're always exaggerations, false claims, or misunderstandings? This is the author's bias. But, let's continue on for a moment. That might be disappointing news if you're hosting a Halloween sleepover, but it might also leave you asking, how do Ouija boards work? The answer is surprisingly simple. Ouija boards rely on the power of your own body. If you've never used a Ouija board, the concept is pretty straightforward. With a group or by yourself, you place your hand slightly on a triangular pointer called a planchette. The planchette rests on the board itself, which has the words yes or no in its top corners, or an alphabet in the center, and the word goodbye at the bottom. The idea is to summon the spirits you want to communicate with, and they'll move the planchette around the board to spell out answers to the questions you ask until they or you finally say goodbye and the spirits go back to wherever they came from. It all sounds pretty harmless, but there's a long tradition of people believing that Ouija boards are dangerous occult gateways that can lead to demon possession or worse. After all, what happens if it's a non-friendly spirit that's moving the planchette without your control? In fact, there's a simple scientific explanation. The mysterious mechanism that powers the Ouija board is called the ideomotor effect, and it's basically a way for your body to talk to itself. The ideomotor effect is an example of unconscious, involuntary physical movement. That is, we move when we're not trying to move. If you've ever experienced the sudden feeling of jerking awake from sleep, known as the hypnotic jerk, you've experienced a more abrupt version of the ideomotor effect, your brain signaling your body to move without your conscious awareness. The obvious difference is that the ideomotor effect happens when you're awake, so the reflexive movements you make are much smaller. In the case of a Ouija board, your brain may unconsciously create images and memories. When you ask the board questions, your body responds to your brain without you consciously telling it to do so, causing the muscles in your hands and arms to move the pointer to the answers that you, again, unconsciously want to receive. Then it goes on to say there are multiple scientific studies that have shown various instances of the ideomotor effect in action. And I mean, I don't want to read the article is somewhat lengthy, but it goes on to conclude. Let me go over to where it talks about dowsing, and I know Patti does a lot of dowsing, and it says that dowsing is another ideomotor effect. But then it concludes with this statement. Finally, the ideomotor effect lies behind a controversial, repeatedly debunked form of pseudoscience called facilitated communication, which emerged as a popular therapy technique in the 1990s. Facilitated communication claims to work by allowing disabled or autistic patients to communicate through slight finger movements. In reality, science has proven many times over that the patient's movements are caused by the ideomotor effect and that their caregivers are reading meaning into nothing. One scientist even referred to facilitated communication as Ouija board stuff. Ironically, the same factor lies at the heart of both the cause and the effects of the ideomotor phenomenon. We want to believe, our desire to confirm the existence of ghost spirits and other improbable possibilities is what convinces Ouija board users, facilitated communication proponents, and anyone else who encounters the ideomotor effect in action that they've experienced something real, a real visitation from another dimension, some sort of mystical sign, or an indication that a patient trapped in his own mind is suddenly able to break free and communicate. But the marvelous thing about a Ouija board isn't what a planchette might read or a psychic might claim the spirits are saying through it from the other side. In reality, the true wonder of the Ouija board is is what lies in our own subconscious. Now, that's the line. This is a whole long thing just to get to that last line there, but if I didn't preface it with all that, you wouldn't understand what I'm about to say. In reality, the wonder of the Ouija board is what lies within our own subconscious. This is what Aja Romano, who wrote for this article for Vox, had to say about it. And he is making one of the most dangerous and biggest mistakes that I would think a inexperienced person in metaphysics or philosophy would make in terms of how he is interpreting this. Because he's going on this real scientific slant. He wants to make it very obvious that there's scientific explanations for this. It's not paranormal. It's not metaphysical. It's not supernatural. It's just, a psychological phenomenon, some partially neurological. And he's trying to push this scientific motivation through so that, everyone, and then he even goes on with saying that it's in the beginning, he makes that statement that it's always exaggerated claims. How do you know that? But when he says that in reality, the true wonder of the Ouija board is what lies within our own subconscious, that is actually correct. He's right about that. See, this is the problem. How do you think it works? Why do you need to put, now I'm going to preface this by saying I have seen the Ouija board work without someone touching it. I've seen the planchette move without anybody's hands on it. So that's another situation altogether, which I'm not going to get into. But most of the time, you're going to have to put your hands on the planchette very loosely, and everyone who's participating does as well. And yes, where do you think the data comes from? Through your subconscious. Where do you think the point of contact with these entities is? It's coming from the opening within your subconscious mind. And the same thing with demonic possession, because there's a whole part, I didn't read all of it, but there's a part where he talks about the demonic possession hoaxes. He says the real physical effect causes some people to believe that seemingly miraculous or paranormal phenomena are behind certain behaviors and occurrences. It's a common element of demonic possession hoaxes. He calls them hoaxes. Since witnesses come to believe the possessed person is moving without her own control, it can also convince people they have the gift of automatic writing, meaning they insist that spirits can communicate with the living through their uncontrolled handwriting. Often the idiomotor effect is used, listen to this, often the idiomotor effect is used to defraud people who visit exorcists, psychics, mediums, and other self-proclaimed spirit channeling types, sometimes leading to severe financial, physical, and psychological harm. This person clearly has never worked with a genuine exorcist, psychic, or medium. Because if he actually took the time to study the other side of what he's bitching about, he'd know that this is not at all what it's like. And, to call it demonic possession hoaxes, idiomotor effect. Okay, yes, of course, it's the subconscious mind that's controlling the actions here. But where do you think the point of contact is? Demonic possession, this is why I always tell people, don't get this idea that some spirit comes into your body and takes over. That's not really an accurate model for looking at it. It has much more to do with it being able to manipulate the subtleties of your neurological system. And honestly, what you see in people with demonic possession, when you see all of the lashing out and all of the violent behavior, that's actually the conscious mind, the ego and the superego fighting against the vulnerabilities of the id, to use, I guess, Freudian terminology, which is the subconscious aspect of our human nature and our faculties of awareness. So he's not wrong, but he's completely misunderstanding how the connection works metaphysically. And that's because he's already dismissed it. He doesn't want to listen to it. This is a person who's already made up his mind. Defraud people. Okay. Yeah, I know Patti will surely tell you tonight, we've all met frauds that are involved in the paranormal. We have to constantly, as people of good standing and reputation, have to fight against the reputation that sometimes precedes us because of these other people who, claim to be exorcists and yes, are self-proclaiming, and they, made it up, and they do this for large sums of money. Same with psychics and mediums and everything else. Not that a person shouldn't be paid for services rendered, but I have seen people abuse vulnerable people. I've known psychics who have charged people in upwards of $30,000 or $40,000 to get rid of a spirit and using, psychic techniques to do so. I can assure you any reputable medium or psychic or exorcist is not going to be doing those kinds of things. But I read this article this week. I thought, well, there's not a commentary, not a question. And this is very kind of appropriate to get us started with the subject matter tonight. So yeah, it kind of bothered me a little bit, but I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and bring it up and get it all out there, and maybe even get, Patti Negri's point of view on this, but, so we've got a great show. It's going to be a fantastic show. And we've got, Sister Mary Joan here tonight. How are you doing tonight, sister?
Good evening, everyone. It's been a full day, but I'm ready to get into this, especially after that preface.
Oh,
man.
I'm telling you.
Biased much, dude? I mean, was it an op-ed or what?
Yeah, I mean, well, they all are, but this is my problem with the media today. It's like, I don't care about your opinions. It's okay to do like an opinion piece, but it has no place in actual reporting. And if you're going to be a reporter, if you're going to pretend to be a reporter, if you're going to write articles and defame people, you better damn well make sure that you're researching the other side of the equation and not using your biases as the inspiration for writing such a thing.
Yeah, this guy didn't do any research. He just went on his own bias. That's all that was.
It was very insulting. I found it to be very insulting. And this is the kind of reporting that's considered acceptable today. Fortunately, Vox is not really considered to be a very, reputable source, but still it's out there, and people on social media will use it as a source. Yeah. Even though it has no genuine credibility. But anyway, not to be negative. I don't want to start off with negativity, but this is a really, I think, an important subject. And you've probably watched, if you've been following Patti Negri and Sister Mary Joan and myself, you've probably seen where we've even done the Ouija board together. I've shared my Ouija board stories, and the Ouija board's a big part of Patti Negri's work. So, you all know who she is. I don't really need to introduce her, but for those of you who might not know, she's a medium. She's a witch. She's my colleague from Ghost Adventures, a very good friend. We've worked together, and I hope to be able to even work some cases in the future when all of the world and travel hopefully returns somewhat to normal. Let's pray. Let's do a spell, Patti, hopefully. But, Patti, welcome to Vestiges After Dark. Welcome back to Vestiges After Dark.
Thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be here. This feels like family reunion. It really does, because we have all these things we're going to go, and then this thing happened, and I just love you both so much. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me back. And what a great subject to start with. Right. I've got stories.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know that you know what I'm talking about when I said the planchette has moved on its own. I mean, I'm sure you've witnessed that.
I have two things. The first off to want to say is, one, things overwrought or whatever you said I could show them my urgent care doctor's report from the time that I was pushed so hard by nobody. It wasn't your automatic whatever, pushed so hard that it ripped all the cartilage off my floating ribs.
Oh my
because
God.
I forgot to set it up correctly and had to go to urgent care. Your whatever moving the Ouija board doesn't throw you into a chair. It doesn't.
I don't know any idiomotor response that would do that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Mine would not do that. I can't. I'm not that strong, actually. I don't have the strength to have ripped everything off my ribs. Yeah. And the other two, this is not quite a Ouija board, but a Ouija board. And this is something I do often. I've been working with a chalkboard with the planchette has chalk on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because as you guys know, spelling sometimes seems to go out the door with death.
Yeah.
And not everybody speaks English, and not everybody even has our alphabet.
Yeah. So
I have a chalkboard and exact same kind of size planchette, and the people put their fingers on, but you don't have to look at the number. So we turn the light out. So how does your little motor working in pitch dark with 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of hands on this little planchette? And I've got amazing stuff. One person, we were talking to, and our fingers are moving below us and can't see a thing. Fingers moving below. It stopped. We moved it. It was a perfect Virgin Mary.
Oh my goodness. Perfect.
Robes and all. It was this beautiful. In the dark with several hands on it. One time this was pretty funny. I'm not going to get political or anything, but this was a couple of years ago.
This show's no stranger to that, so don't worry about it.
Okay. I was with Associated press crime reporter, Linda Deutsch, the most famous female. She got famous on Charles Manson, O.J. Simpson, every one of those, courtroom reporter, most famous. So we were doing one of her friends, a White House correspondent, had passed. So this was in the Trump era. And we're like, what's going on in the White House? And again, fingers flying in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Stop, move the fingers. It had drawn a perfect rat.
Oh, wow.
A perfect rat. I mean, like ergonomically, whatever not ergonomic is not the right word, but like, not like I would draw a rat, but like an artist would draw a rat, or you would trace a rat.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And again, in the dark. So all that, like you're subconsciously writing, whatever, it couldn't work with that.
And see, that's, I didn't read that part of the article, but he actually cites these studies, which he does not actually cite. He just mentions that there have been studies, but he doesn't actually report on what they were or who did them and what the qualifications of these individuals were. But he actually mentions how there have been, quote unquote, numerous studies where when they blindfolded the participants, then the Ouija board just was gibberish. It was only it only spelled out words when the participants were able to actually physically look at the letters, and they were using this as an example for how clearly this is ideomotor effect. If it was actual spirits, then they could have been able to, they would have been able to work with or without people watching it. But I mean, we've both witnessed Ouija board sessions where you did not need to look at the letters to have a result. So there you go. This is straight from the witch's mouth.
Straight from the witch's mouth. Yeah, because that has to debunk both of those things. And again, that chalkboard thing, I highly recommend it, because
that's interesting.
It will draw, it will write. I've had it write in Arabic. I've had it write something. Yeah.
Is this something you can buy, or did you have it like custom made? This
my
planchette?
friend made it. It's called McBaines.com, MacBaines, but he's the one who created my talking crystal ball. He invents beautiful. It's like an Ovulus meets a whatever.
Oh, wow.
But he's just moving. He just left LA to go to Niagara Falls. I think the pandemic kind of just did him in, so he's not doing anything right now.
Yeah, kind of like us. Kind of like us.
Exactly, like everybody, like the planet.
Yeah.
But it's not that hard. It's on. It's like cut. It's wood. It's got 3 roller balls under the thing, and then you stick a piece of chalk through it. It's got a look, and that's it.
Wow.
Oh, I have one I'm not even sure it's a roller ball. It might just be like what's on the planchette. I've got a couple different versions, but they're brilliant. And I don't think it would be hard for somebody who knows how to do that kind of thing to make one. Sure. Yeah. No, that sounds really fascinating.
I would
I would love to do that with you sometimes.
Let's do it.
We do. We need to do that, and you're mentioning about how, we had all these plans and all these things that were in development, and then COVID-19 hit and sort of just,
tanked all of it.
Yeah. Well,
shut down the world.
It kind of put it into, I guess, an indefinite hiatus. But, I do hope that things will normalize, and then we can kind of get back on track with some of the things that we talked about, because we miss you, Patti. We really do.
I know. I miss you too. And it will. I mean, it's taking longer than I had anticipated.
Yeah.
But I see it. I mean, for so long, studios were all closed. You drive down Hollywood Boulevard and there's no one there. It was eerie weird, as you know, anywhere you go, it's eerie weird, but it's coming back. I've been shooting a lot lately. Again, lots of protocol, but they're doing it. Yeah.
Well, you've been busy.
I've done some shows fully masked.
Yeah.
The last 2, Cecil Hotel with Zach and the guys, and then the Holly one was fully masked, or the one where we took off masks. It's like you're talking to him peeking around the corner from 28 feet away.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so fine, whatever.
We've done 3 shoots since COVID. So it's coming back. It's coming back. It's been moving. And I do hope that eventually, things will normal. I mean, do you have any psychic impressions about it? Have you seen anything that might indicate to you that things are starting to turn around?
I psychically know, because my witch side takes over before my psychic side, going, it's up to us.
Yeah.
It's up to us.
No,
that free will thing.
Yeah.
And how, it's, are we careful? Are we whatever? So, but I do think we're on the upswing, and I think the whole thing weirdly, was a big wake up call, God, universe, spirit, source, whatever, just like, you guys are asleep. Go to your room and stay there till you figure out what's important. We were sent to our room, literally.
I think
some
that's
people
true.
are figured out what's important, and some people just watch TV.
Yeah, I think that you're right on target with that. I think even the environmental disturbances that have been sort of strange. I mean, yeah, you can claim global warming, but I mean, I think there's a lot more to the concentration. It's different with the flooding and the fires and just the overall strangeness of the world. It's an outward projection of the inner turmoil, I think. So I agree with you. I think this ends when we say it ends. But we have to be collectively in agreement, I think, for the most part. I mean, we can always have outliers. That's fine. But I think the dissension and the turmoil in the world, that needs to cease. Otherwise, this is the world's going to keep fighting back and being like, we're going to keep doing this until, like you said, send you to the room and you stay in there, no dinner before supper. You can't come out until you get along.
Yeah. And again, it shouldn't have to take tragedy to bring us together. But I have done lots of thinking, lots of growth, and it's like, we are this, I guess it's our competitive spirits. It's this against that against this. Politics, baseball. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
You're a Yankee, you're a Dodger, you're a this or you're a that. We don't know how to just put it all together.
And I mean, it's like, it's not that difficult to do. I find it interesting because, I mean, I'm a very moderate person, both politically, but also spiritually as well. I mean, people might hear the word Bishop Bryan and think that I'm this ultra conservative, religious, Catholic nutcase, and it's like nothing could be further from the truth there. I walk the middle path as much as I possibly can. I've been inspired by that. My Buddhism has been an instrumental part of my spirituality. It still is, even though I'm a Christian today. It was fundamental, and it still influences my direction. And I will say that, so I have friends on very opposite ends of the spectrum, religiously and politically, and these conflicts just don't exist. It seems to be a phenomenon of social media. Now, social media has been a really good thing for people like you and me because it's allowed us to connect with people, with fans, with things that we normally wouldn't be able to do. A show like this. 10 years ago, well, maybe 10 years ago, but 20 years ago, you couldn't do. This was not possible unless you had a network backing and, we're in a studio with a established channel. You could not have what we're doing right now. And internet and social media have made this now possible, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. The downside is it's made it impersonal and made it very easy for people's ids, going back to that Freudian stuff we started with, people's ids to kind of dominate the conversation. Because I find that when you log into Twitter and you log into Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, what you're seeing is raw id material of people's consciousness. You're not seeing the filtered material that you get from the interactions of the ego and the superego. You're just seeing the raw unconscious response, which is almost entirely emotionalism. It's not based in any form of genuine reality. And that's now ruling these conversations. And I think we're being manipulated by media, by corporations, by politics as well, on both sides. Liberal and conservative does not matter. Both sides are equally participating in that manipulation to sort of just direct us and create the chaos and everyone they get rich, we don't, but they do, and that's kind of how it works. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like I say this. Look, pay attention. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. Pay attention. You're going to see, if you really pay attention, that they're in cahoots. They're working together. It's very obvious. It's very obvious. Like, I think that old axiom that says, they're two wings of the same bird. That Native American thing. It's very true. And I think that we as sentient beings, and hopefully with some spiritual, if we're working and developing ourselves spiritually, we should be able to more than easily dominate these weaker minded people that need power to be able to effectuate a response. See, that's the thing. It's always bullying. It's the classic bullying on the schoolyard. Bullies were never the strong ones. Bullies did bullying because they were weak and they wanted to feel strong. And that's what I see right now in the media, in politics, both sides. Doesn't matter. I don't take a side because I hate them both. And it's just the way it is. I see it as it is. But for us, for people like you and me, who I think are in a unique position to kind of open the world up, and from our unique perspectives, which is great because I've never had a conflict. I've never felt a conflict with witchcraft. And yet I can tell you right now, I mean, it would be I'd be hard pressed to find one Christian that could say that. Hopefully tonight, we can talk about that. You've been on the show before. I had a good friend of mine a couple weeks ago, Amanda Morris, who's also a practicing witch, a neo-pagan. And she's also a licensed therapist with a master's degree. She counsels people, and we were talking about how she handles both worlds. Being a witch on one side, a high priestess on one side, rather, and then a therapist on the other, doing the secular and the spiritual. And I'm thinking, the world is going so secular, Patti. It's going so off the rails with secularism and atheism and all this. I think people of faith, whether they be Christian faith or faith in the pagan gods or the forces of nature, I think we all have to band together. So I'm curious, all this to say, I'm curious, how have you been impacted by the movement, I think, in society to kind of make religion almost a superstition? I'm sure you're seeing that and perhaps being impacted by that on some level, because I know I am. And it's not just an attack. They call it like the war on Christianity. It's not a war on Christianity. It's a war on religion, period. Anybody who has a religion that they care about and they practice, particularly religious leaders like ourselves, are going to be affected by this. So how is it impacting you from your neck of the woods in the work that you do?
Yeah, I agree. What I think it is, and it's I don't even know if it's how new that is, but it's like we made everything to be so left brain logical, straight and narrow. Focus in, laser beamed head right here. This is your right brain your creative spiritual artist didn't matter. It's your logical brain. Mm-hmm. You can't have one. When we took art out of schools, their math scores went down.
Music
period.
too. Yeah.
You can't live this laser beam. When I'm like, okay, the windy path is nice. It might not get there as fast, but it's a scenic route. You dance between your logic and your intuition, your this and that. But I think it started, I don't know, in the 50s or 40s. My grandfather was this big atheist, huge, famous of the day, psychoanalyst from Turkey. He wrote lots of books on religion. He knew religion is better than most priests or rabbis or everything. But to know that's a weakness, it's whatever that he thought.
Yeah.
And I would watch him with his shocking white hair. He's very Freudian in his work, and had followings. He was ahead of his time in many ways. He had women's groups before anybody had women's groups. He was a vegetarian before people were vegetarian. I think he lived with two of his nudists before people were nudists in the early days of it. He lived with two of his wives at the same time. It's like, oh, crazy grandpa, wild. But I read his books now, and other than if you get past the rhetoric of atheism and all that, it's like, but if you look at the energy below, it's not that different than what I believe or that what you guys believe, or that if you take that true line, why it's the template you put onto it. So why is it going to be bad that you choose a Catholic template, or you choose a New Agey template, or you choose, a witchy template or a Buddhist template? If we could just get to that our truth below it, even grandpa fits in, but he would have seen that, just like what you're saying that they're doing now, that war against religion. He was doing that in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it isn't something that's necessarily new. I think it does, though, ebb and flow in terms of how
Yes.
it impacts those of us who are working. Because, I mean, clearly the church of the 40s and 50s was not suffering from the level of disparity that it is today. So
No.
even though that was going on, and I mean, honestly, if you really want to get technical and historical about it, I'd say it started in the Renaissance was where it started. You know, it was really about moving away from again, superstition into scientific thought and
the Age of Enlightenment.
the Age of Enlightenment with objective reasoning, and that being the primary focus. And even the philosophies themselves that originated out of that time were very much focused. Even this idea of the Illuminati, and it's the same general principle at work with all of these different instruments of history, but it's like the impacts have been different. Like the church obviously it suffered, but it didn't suffer to the extent that it is today. I mean, you had the Protestant Reformation, which was not obviously very damaging to the church. Any kind of schism would be. And I think that the Age of Enlightenment was sort of, again, the way people were changing, that was part of what instigated that. But, now today it's like, I mean, people are really, they don't know what to do with you. If I go out in clerics, Father Chris Yates will join us, during the discussion part of the show. And he can tell you, I mean, because he's in Australia. It's even worse there than it is for us here. You go out in clerics, I mean, you get such a spectrum of reactions. You get people that run to you almost like they're crazy. You get people that are terrified of you. It makes some people angry. I know. Do you ever go out in your full, like, are you ever, like, other than when you're doing an event, do you ever get on a plane in full witch's attire?
Every day.
And so would you get a lot of strange responses? How does that go for you?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on where you fly.
Yes.
Because it's true. In West Coast, going straight to New York, no.
No, you're not going to have a problem
there. I look like everybody else.
Yeah.
So it really depends on, I mean, that is where there is a difference of where you are and where you're flying.
Yeah.
But it's, because I always have on my pentagram, my pentacle. I've had this on like 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
When am I going to take it off?
Yeah.
You certainly get, depending on where you are, that this is weird, this is wrong, or you're just, but it's weird because now is the time you would think they would go towards spirituality of some form or religion because tough times. But do you think part of it is because you guys are amazing in your belief system and your church and everything, but maybe some aren't keeping up with just modern times?
I think it is a lot to do with that. I think it's some traditions and some denominations, if not most, are really stuck in a period of time that is antiquated thinking. And there is something to be said for maintaining certain tradition and the integrity of those traditions. And I'm sure the same is true for you as well. I mean, there are certain things that are part of the rubric of practice. I think that every religion must adhere to. Otherwise, it's just this loosey-goosey, do whatever you want kind of thing. And that doesn't always work. In fact, most of the time that doesn't work. If it doesn't have the connection to history and what our ancestors did, then there's less power there. I mean, you can create a new ritual. You can create a whole new religion if you want, but it might take about 1,000 to 2,000 years before it becomes like metaphysically significant. So it's best to kind of go with the old ways. And right now, Christianity, paganism, they're both old ways now. It's no longer, you can say Christianity is the new religion. I mean, it's been on the planet long enough. Islam's 500 years younger. Buddhism's 500 years older. But it's still old. But yeah, I think it is. I think it does have something to do with the fact that times change, people change, needs change, and a religion to a certain extent has to be relevant to the people it serves. And if it fails to do this, and if it takes a hard-ass approach by saying, well, this is our dogma, do this or you go to hell or something of that nature, well, that's going to just drive people away, because you can't force people to believe anything. You have to, you have to share the elements of the truth as you best understand them. I tend to talk about them in terms of models. So for me, everything in religion is a model. So there might be some new models that are much better than the older models. The substance is the same. We don't change theology. We definitely don't change sacramental theology. That sometimes works to the dismay of many, because I think people expect me to be ordaining women, for example. And I would love nothing more than to have women priests. It would be great if Sister Mary Joan and Sister Maximilian could be priests to help me do my job, rather than nuns, which are more limited. But the sacramental theology is fixed. That's not changeable. You could maybe hold an ecumenical council to bring all the bishops of all the churches together to make a ruling that says, okay, this is what we understand the theology to be, and this is how we move forward. But no one bishop can just make that modification. And any bishop that has, kind of like what you see with the Anglican Church, for example, is absolutely violating the rules of sacramental theology and towing the line of invalidity as the result of it. And at that point, then why are you doing it at all? If what you're doing is an invalid practice metaphysically, then and that's not to say that ordaining women or women priests are invalid. It's right. That without the proper procedure in place to make that possible, it's invalid, and it does not connect with the various archetypes that sort of govern the system that you're using. And there are parallels to this in witchcraft too. I know, I off the top of my head, I'd have to think about one, but there are parallels where there's just certain things that you don't do, even though you could maybe start making changes, and you could maybe get a whole little group of covens together and say, well, we're going to try doing this. And but again, you're talking about breaking metaphysical connections that have been well established, have been proven to work. You don't want to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, you need to be somewhat progressive. Otherwise you become static and stale. It's tough, Patti. It's tough to toe that line. It really, particularly for us, because as Christians, people expect us to be a certain way, and we cannot be that way. For example, the bigger one for me, and this is one of the things I'm very happy about, is our ability to reach LGBTQ, IA plus people, because those groups have been completely abandoned by most denominations of Christianity. Yeah. And we can open them with welcome arms. And if people don't like it, I don't really give a damn. There's nothing that stops me. In fact, everything that the theology teaches says that this is exactly what we need to be doing, is being open to people and reaching them at their level. So, that's why I do what I do. But it's like sometimes when I'm walking that path, it's like I've got both sides that are pissed off at me. I've got, I'm not liberal enough for the liberals, and I'm not conservative enough for the conservatives.
You're never going to make everybody happy.
No, well, but we're making nobody happy. That's the problem.
No.
Even walk in the middle. Both sides hate you. And it is true, because again, I came from a blank slate, so to speak. I was gifted. I saw energy. I had this grandpa, so we didn't have words like God or church or tell. We would have been on my grandpa's side Jewish, where he came from Turkey, Sephardic.
Oh, really?
Would have been, but wow. Yes. On mom's side, she's a good old, Protestant, whatever, from the South, from England. But we just never had. I just didn't know, because of grandpa's teaching, he was so strong. But I would drive by a church and see the energy, and I'd see the magic. I'd drive by a temple. You can
feel the power. Yeah, you can feel the power.
I'd see a synagogue and I'd see it. I'd go by a mosque and see it. I'd go by a park and see it. Yeah. And I'd want to go in. I'd see that magic there. But I was actually afraid to ask, because it's like, we don't say that G word. And I remember I was 13 years old. I think I was 13. And there was some really cute Christian band playing at at a local church, just a regular local church, because that's in the days of the cute Jesus people, cute rock bands. And I just wanted to see this cute band. So I was so worried going to ask my mom if I could go to church with my friend. I was like, and I mean, I would have almost felt safer. Can I go to a rave? Can I go to a club? Orgy? No, I'm not orgy. But and my mom's go, oh yeah. She's like, you could do anything you want to do. And I go, I could do anything I want to do. So I started searching everything, all of these buildings. And I went to various Christian churches. I went to Temple. I went to Buddhist. I went to Evangelical. And I remember that was the only one that stood out, like, it was this big, again, Jesus people, whatever. And in back in the day.
Well, can I interject real quickly, not to lose your train of thought, but I would say that if I had to choose, if there were only two religions to choose from in the world, only two that were legal, and otherwise you were like put to death or something if you practiced anything else, had to be evangelical Christianity or a neo-pagan witchcraft, I would take the neo-pagan witchcraft every time.
Same.
Yeah. Every time.
I'm already halfway there with my shamanism.
I mean, evangelical Christianity scares the hell out of me. It really does.
Well,
yeah, it should.
Well, what it is, I mean, they seem so nice and come and welcome to our church. And I was talking to pastor and I said, I'm brand new. I don't know religion. I have this, I want to discover it. I see stuff. I see light. I see God. Well, I don't know what God is though. I want to see what this is.
Yeah.
And I go, so I went to Temple, I went to whatever, and now I'm coming here. And next week I'm going to go to a Buddhist temple. And the evangelical guy said, oh, you can't go there. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes,
why not?
No, because Jesus, God is here, and it's taking your eyes off him to talk to a Buddhist. You have to talk about Buddhism with us.
Oh boy! And
even at 13, I went, that doesn't sound right.
Right?
No, it doesn't.
That doesn't sound right. Well, I think I would talk to a Buddhist about Buddhism. I would talk to you about your form of Christian. So that just rang so strong in my ear. It's like, how can you be this only right thing and tell me it's a sin to go? That was my first introduction to it. Like,
yeah. See, and that's I mean, I hear that story told again and again, but just by different faces and different voices. So it's unfortunately not a unique story. And I wish it were, because it shouldn't be that way. That should have been an anomaly, that you encountered.
Just some guy who didn't know better. Right.
And unfortunately, that's not the case. It's the way that it typically is in many of these churches, and it drives people away. So that's part of it. I mean, I would definitely not say that the world the way it is today is against the church and we're victims. Oh no, the church has definitely contributed to the way things are and the hatred they receive. No question about it. But a lot of it has to do with ignorance on both sides. Ultimately, if you really want to break it down, that's ultimately what it is. And that's what I think is happening with the rest of the world too. And I think that even the political dissension, I think it's basically ignorance on both sides and unwillingness to listen to what the other person's point of view is, an unwillingness to be tolerant towards what that other point of view is. And this all or nothing approach and people have become, people are naturally dogmatic. And so, if you don't have religion to be dogmatic about, then you'll use politics or science or something else, that any kind of authority, you just create an authority if you need one, but there's all these other authorities in the world that human beings respond to. So you got religion, you got politics, you got science. Philosophy might be another authority. Corporate power, business, money's another authority. So some people just make that their dogmatism. And that's just the way that it is. We have to, I think, be greater than that, bigger than that, and inspire people to be bigger than that and greater than that. Hopefully we're doing that. I think you and I are, at least, Patti and Sister Mary Joan.
I think we are. And you know what? I've made these realizations too, as I've been doing these paracons and everything. What the paranormal people are doing is they are looking for that something, whether it's spirituality, they're looking something beyond this. Yeah. And maybe they're not quite ready to go to church or take on a religion, but but they want to go to ghosts or it's to see what's on the other side.
It is.
And I've seen people, so they get into that and then, well, I don't know anything about, they don't have any kind of a template, any kind of a roadmap to navigate that. So then, I need some protection techniques. So then maybe they, this is Bryan, he teaches that, or these different things. So then the very back door into finding a belief system or parts of belief systems when we started out going, no, I don't want religion. I don't want spirituality. I don't want any of that stuff, but let's go talk to ghosts.
I get told all the time.
Find out very quickly. So doing this kind of work probably should have had some kind of faith in something. But you're left completely vulnerable.
Yeah. We get told, Sister Mary Joan, you know this, we get told all the time by viewers and fans of Ghost Adventures that people say, I lost my relationship to God years ago. I gave it up. I abandoned it. I abandoned the church, whatever. And I saw you on Ghost Adventures and it brought me back to the church, or it brought me back to God, or I started exploring my spirituality again. And I've never been so happy.
Quite a few people.
A lot, probably even more than I've even shared with the rest of the church, because sometimes the emails just come to me. And I'm always happy to read that, because, and it's not about, I just want another one back to, Christianity. It's not about that for me. It's that I'm bringing someone back to their spiritual center, because that's where the healing is. That's where the healing is. So I really think that the illness in the world today, that we see, the illness in society, and I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about just the hostilities and the vengefulness and the dissension and the divisiveness between peoples. That spiritual illness is what that is. Ultimately, right. That's in some ways I might say that's the true pandemic. And I think COVID-19 is merely a physical manifestation of that internal reality. Because I'm a strong proponent metaphysically that the as above, so below thing. I think it also works that what's inside is ultimately what creates the outside. I don't think it's the outside in. We tend to think in reverse. We're very we're left brain, like you said, 5 senses, and the external world is the real world, and the internal world's kind of like the imaginary one. That's where our thoughts and our dreams and our daydreams and all that stuff happen. So we tend to mitigate the importance of that internal world, and yet we put all our emphasis on the external, when in reality, everything in the external world is ultimately there because it came out of the inside first. Think about it in terms of just basic. I can prove it with just basic mechanics of how things work. Build a building. Well, the building doesn't just show up, right? And then, the architect has to design that. That comes from inside himself. Every piece of technology came from inside someone's mind first and then became a physical reality. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that spiritually, for at least the natural world, the things that are not technical, the things that were not generated by human intellection, is also, though, a manifestation of the internal reality. We might call that God in Christianity. Some religions might say it's the source, or I don't care what name you give it, but that's the internal, incorporeal aspect of the universe that spawns or sort of creates the external. Once we understand that, then we can start actually healing. But right now, they're just pouring acid on the festering wound. And they it's like the limbs are falling off at this point. It's like you're going to eventually need amputation to keep going on this far, and the universe will be more than happy to comply. Yep. It's a very indifferent universe in that respect. Right. Yeah. So, Patti, tell me, we've talked about this before, but I think the audience might be interested. I know there's a lot of dissension, sometimes even within pagan and covens and various witchcraft circles, as to the importance and necessity of ancestral connection. So where do you stand on that? Do you feel that just somebody can wake up one day and say, I want to be a witch, go down to their New Age bookstore, pick up a few books and start practicing witchcraft, and that's good to go? Or do you think that there has to be some kind of internal calling from, does perhaps a deity need to reach out and then you respond to that and then follow a path. How does that, or do you need to be born into it? How does it work for you in your mind, in your opinion?
Well, me, I mean, I think if somebody says, I want to be a gift that and go to the bookstore and buy it, you know, they might find inspiration there. Fine. A lot of it. Oh, it's a fad. It's cool to be a witch now because Sephora makes witch makeup. You know, that's a fad. That's whatever. But with me, again, I had no religion. I had none of that. But I would find myself in the backyard picking rosemary and picking mint and stuffing it in my mom's wallet, knowing it would bring her more money. How I know that? It's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
I was talking to the other side. I figured out raising the veil at my first seance. I was 7 or 8.
Wow.
Nobody had taught me anything. I literally, like, animal have instincts. We have instincts. This attention to nature. It was never God or gods. It was nature. It was connecting into the rocks, like your shaman, the rocks and the trees and that, and sound. I think when I was 7 or 8, the first sounds that came out of me, this pneuma, this life force, were just, they were innate. What was that? Blood? Is that ancestor coming from both sides? That Sephardic old gypsy side of my grandpa and my this whatever here?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I tried all these other places, and then I kind of landed right here because, you know, I went kind of new agey at first, and I'm like, it's kind of pink chiffon-y for me. You know, these days of Shirley MacLaine out on a limb. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Shirley MacLaine.
goddess.
It's a loosey-goosey.
Yeah. But then I saw a little more earthy, literally earthy. I have more pagan path. I started out very Wiccan in what I do, and now it's so out there. I'm a witch. I don't even know. I draw from chaos magic. I draw from ceremonial. I draw from traditional British, which is more art-based system than everything works off a compass in that. So it's whatever you put in the north. But I love working with God, Jesus, deities, Aphrodite, whoever. But that is really not my main thing. I'm an earth baby. I'm an elemental.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, thank you for that description. That was perfect. We are talking with Patti Negri and about witchcraft and about her life in the modern world as a witch. When we come back on the second half here, we're going to be taking your questions and your calls. So don't go away. We hope to hear from you.
It was raining in the skies.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of Vestiges After Dark. I am Bishop Bryan Willett, and we are talking with Sister Mary Joan and our special guest, Patti Negri. Father Chris Yates is joining us for this second half as well. We'll be looking at your questions in the chat room and also asking you to call in. Remember, the number to call is 347-338-1860. That's 347-338-1860. Once you call that number, dial 110-0999 to enter into the switchboard. That's 110-0999. Again, we hope to hear from you. And remember, you can ask us questions from all the platforms. Our moderators are looking at it. So if you're on Twitter watching live, if you're on Facebook watching live, if you're on Spreaker watching live, on Twitch, doesn't really matter. Just ask us a question. Maybe we'll answer it on the air. Don't go away. Already, Patti, we have a question coming in from, let me see, it was from Thania. Thania, yeah. She is asking, I lost it. Sister Mary Joan, do you have it there? There it is. It says,
okay.
Her question is, did Patti have a near-death experience that she is aware of, and is this the reason for her abilities? Have you ever had anything like that happen at any point in your life, Patti?
Nope, absolutely not. Nope.
Nothing.
No, I mean, I've had weird health issues that have pertained to things and tumors in the head and stuff, but not young. When I was 3 and 4, as long as I can talk, I remember talking to spirits. I thought everybody could. Almost cliche, the spirits in the closet and under the bed that all little kids have. It wasn't always a monster under the bed. Sometimes it was a nice thing. And I was always obsessed with the dead, but never ever in a morbid or dark way. I just like to talk to them. So that's when I went in my little suburban home in the hallway and stuffed towels under the doors because there's no windows or lights in the hall, and came up with my first lifting of the veil and realized I didn't know dead people. And I'm like, Marilyn Monroe, John Kennedy, and anybody I could think of at the time, late 60s. So no near-death experience, nothing. It just didn't get taught out of me. I do think kids
literally
have
the
this
DNA
gift.
Yeah. We're born with it. Janet B in the chat room on YouTube asks, how did Patti receive messages, readings as a medium? Vision, symbols, a certain sensory cue? New to the subject. Sorry for the basic question.
Oh, never be sorry for a question. Questions are great. The only bad question is the one unasked. All of the above. I think because I started out so young, it wasn't, am I seeing? Am I smelling? Am I hearing? Am I seeing with my outside eyes? Am I seeing with my inside eyes? Is it just a knowing? When you study it later, clairvoyant, claircognizant, clairsentient, clairgustance, all those things. But I just would talk to them. They were there. I'd see them. Sometimes I'd see them literally. Here's like you walk in, you're getting a full apparition. Sometimes I'd see them in my head. Oh, it's a guy with a cowboy hat. I never differentiated it. I think because I was so little.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that comes to, again, back to what we've been saying is there's just this natural instinct, this inclination that you have. This is who you are. This is just your nature, and you're living your nature out authentically. And that's a beautiful thing. Art Dell asks, Patti, are you in good terms with Lady Snake? Is it possible for witches' energies to clash when together?
Wendy Bing. Well, what it is, I mean, the Lady Snake, for those who don't know, Zach has a thing about the good witch and the bad witch. And
she's actually going to be on the show later this season.
Is it awesome?
Yeah, maybe you should call in.
Okay.
Even check in with her this week, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
We were in Vegas. We all knew each other. This was my second time for that one show. We were in the same hotel. We were in the same holding room. Not her. He kept her separate. It was just like, oh, hi, Patty. Will you go in the basement and talk to Lady Snake? I'd already done
Where's
it.
She been?
The first time he had sent, it was so funny because he was like, I was locked away in the thing, and I was just kind of stream of consciousness. I'm like, there's somebody on the ground, and that was Father Sebastian, my vampire. There's a lady and a baby, and a lady and a baby. There was Bloody Mary in one part of the thing with some haunted doll, but I was just saying what was going on, and then he goes, "Okay, Patty, come with me," and he walks me into a room with a great big cauldron. Didn't know, and there's this little unassuming English woman who wanted to kill me. Who wanted to like hit me with a little she was doing definitive black magic. I mean, I know magic is magic, black, good, bad. That was my first thing to her. I had no idea that first time it was Ed Gein's cauldron. I had no idea until I watched it on television.
Yeah.
It's like, no wonder it wasn't Wendy Binks, the witch, good witch, bad witch, the witch. She allows herself to do dark magic. So it was Ed Gein and whatever magic she was doing with him that I met. And then the second time, the time we were all together, again, keeps it separate. Not like, how come she wasn't in the hotel with us? It was like that was go down to the basement. Now he lets people in the basement, but then he didn't. There she is, setting in her minimal pentagram, doing dark magic, and she was doing some stuff that really kind of messed things up because it caused
That's when
chaos,
the imps started running around, right?
Yeah.
Those little creatures,
Those little creatures, which Chris Fleming saw them, I saw them, you guys probably saw them.
Kind of freaked Chris out.
Yeah.
Well, the energy, we didn't go in that night for Ghost Adventures Live. Sister Mary Joan and I were outside in the courtyard.
Protecting us.
And pretty much, on call in case there was a need for anything. Fortunately, it wasn't more than a few blessings that I needed to do. But overall, I mean, I think Dakota was the one that was the most affected. And Zach was not feeling well anyway. So he was already kind of under the weather, which is never a good place to be when you're going into dealing with this kind of thing.
Yeah. So basically, my only experiences with her was when she was in the middle of dark ritual. And then afterwards, it's like, hi, slow meeting thing. And it's like, oh, there's a lovely woman there. I think there is a lovely woman there. We just have different ethic standards, and I don't judge hers. I just choose not to work dark because to me, not good or bad, even heaven or hell, it's that you have to live in the world you create. Even if I go wicked reader, right, what you put out, you come back 3 times. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but we call it karma, whether you just call it cause and effect, action and reaction. I don't want to live in a world of curses and hexes, because if I curse and hex, then I can be cursed and hexed. And I've been able to get everything from love, from light. I mean, everything. I mean, crazy things that I should never have gotten. I'm in Hollywood, so I do it Hollywood style. I'm not that physical, so I'm going to beat 100,000 people to get on Wipeout, which I did. I did the world's hardest obstacle course. That's very addicting. That was scary. Okay. What do I not do? I do not cook. I can't cook. My husband won't let me in the kitchen. I got kicked out of home ec in high school. I'm going to cook for Gordon Ramsay.
That's funny. A witch that can't cook, because I watched that one. Spells are recipes, right? So
I can cook. It's just the eating it part. I'm a brilliant spellcaster. Herbs, oils, mixes. There I am but don't eat it. but again, I beat that 100,000 people, and I cook for Gordon Ramsay, and all with positive witchcraft. Then I did it again. I'm like, what am I way not right for? Yeah. America's Got Talent. I do not have those people amaze me, the singers, the dancers. Next thing I know, I am rolling around on the floor with Howie Mandel, psychically reading his dog. I mean, I'm the queen of crash and burn. I love that. It's like, I get there, but I did it not, and I wasn't on those big, 1,000-person auditions at the going, oh, I curse that person. Oh, I hope you burn your chicken. I hope you drop your tap shoe. No, I was like, gosh, I hope you do. This is great. I hope you get it. You put out, you get back. So that spotlight, not that's why he's even doing it, but I'm the one who ends up on those shows, and too many people who work dark, to me, they end up getting cranky and paranoid and
starts to eat them
ugly
up
on the inside.
Well, it does. I mean, even from even from what we do, I mean, even from the side of just working with fighting against these dark forces and having to oftentimes remove these dark forces from objects, places, or even people, that weighs on you over time.
very heavily.
And you have to keep yourself in constant check from falling into states of depression or just being angry at the world, because you're around that energy all the time. It's like, I didn't become a priest to do that. I became a priest to do baptisms and weddings and celebrate joyful things, maybe a funeral here and there, but overall, just the mass and just these beautiful parts of our spirituality. Exorcism was the last place I saw myself, and the last places I wanted to be just ended up being the place that God put me, and that's kind of the rest is history. But I understand that perfectly. So I can't imagine willfully surrendering myself to these dark archetypes to do the dark stuff. That eludes me to a certain degree.
It eludes me. But no, I'm sure she's lovely. I know she's a mom. She has a kid. She lives a regular life. Yeah. I'm sure I would like her. I would love her. I would respect her. I just have a different choice.
We have good exchanges.
We had a great time with her.
She's very, very
me too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, she's a very nice person. I think it's just when she plays with those dark archetypes, she really knows how to do it.
Yeah.
2LFK13 asks, this is a good question, Patti. Any tips for learning to trust your intuition over your rational brain?
That's good.
Yes. Awareness, number one, is it just awareness that it isn't there. And then that first gut instinct, do this, turn left, do that. Even if, whether teaching mediumship or teaching whatever, it's like, you can't be afraid of being wrong. You can't be afraid of it. It can't put it into logic. Even if it's like, I want to develop my gift. Wait, I think grandma's standing behind me. If you send it to a logical brain, you're shutting it. Oh no, that doesn't make sense. Somebody just opened the window, blah, blah, blah. But just say, okay, yes. Is grandma standing behind me? That's what. Did something blow into this room? Just say yes. Just say yes. If you want to analyze it, tell yourself you could analyze it in 2 hours. I like 2 hours, because in 2 hours you go, was that grandma standing beside me, that first gut instinct, or was that indigestion? Or did somebody open the window? That's fine. But the more you could just trust it. In the craft, in witchcraft, where's my prop? Okay. We separate the worlds very clearly. If we would lay down our besom, the witch's brew. It's my baby one. On this side of the world is the mundane world, the logical world. You pay your rent, you do everything, and gravity counts, all that stuff. And over here is the magical world, the spiritual world. Angels, demons, magic, fairies live. We definitively, going into ritual, would go from here to there. And then here, gravity doesn't matter. Logic doesn't matter. We give ourselves permission for that. And then we shut that down and we go back here. So I don't have to be the crazy person in the grocery store with, your mother wants to talk to you, talking to people's dead people. Thank you. But so I think there's a really nice delineation. The more you separate them, the more you can live here and there. Sometimes, yes, you have to have that dormer switch and you dance in between. When I'm working, if I'm channeling, you can't give up your logical brain, because you have to know how you're talking and where you're talking to people. But it's learning to do that dance. But the first thing is just faith, trust.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Damon Fleck asks, or actually it's, I guess, Christopher from the UK. I'm not sure. Question for Patti. Patti, how do you deal with the overzealous fans who follow your every interview regardless of location or time zone?
Is this Christopher Hall?
It says Christopher Hall. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh,
know
he's
him?
talking about himself. You love them madly.
Okay.
This poor thing, he's in the UK. So whether it's my classes or I'm on air, it's like I see him, he's on Zoom at 2 a.m. for him. You love them. You're beautiful and respectful and wonderful guy.
I've got to say, because you and I share a lot of the same fans. Ghost Adventures fans are fantastic. I mean, they really are. The sincere ones, the genuine ones. I mean, you always have people that follow you for the wrong reasons, but the ones that follow the show because they love the show and they believe in the work and they understand the work and they realize the sincerity of all of us, no less than the GAC themselves. I mean, all of us are involved in this work in a very serious way. We take the work very seriously. It might look like a TV show to the rest of the world, but it's not and I can tell you right now, it's not to Zach. It really isn't. Mm-hmm. It's truly, it's his vocation. It's passion. Yeah, it is. So yeah, when you have fans, I think it's a wonderful thing because they bring meaning to the work that you do. Kind of not just for validation, but also just for the sake that we're impacting people. And like I said earlier, from my own vantage point, it's great that when I hear someone say that they found God because of me, it's like, well, that's wonderful, because if I hadn't been on TV, you would have probably never even found me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I do too. And TV is a great medium for that. I mean, besides Ghost Adventures, I do like some, which would be considered silly shows like, Bad Girls Club or,
you've done a lot of stuff. You've done a lot of stuff.
I've done a lot of stuff. Yeah. But again, you're getting to a whole audience. And even if I could just turn on one little light bulb, if I'm going in there to clear the house of the Bad Girls Club where all these urban girls beat each other up and fight and go, you don't have to fight. What if you bring this energy in? What if you do this? And the little light bulb, wow. Again, it's empowering them in a way versus you could change that reality if you want. And I would never get to an audience like that. So it's great. Yeah.
Fantastic. Father Chris, welcome to the show. I'm sure you have something you'd like to inject all the way from Australia with your prison bars and your rubber bullets. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Being shot with rubber bullets in the name of health.
Yes. Have you survived?
Yeah, I've been praying and willing for a new constitution in this country, but
oh my!
I think
usually you need revolution first.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem in Australia. It wasn't a revolution. It's just a modification of empire that happened here.
Yeah, there you go.
Forgot about the Bill of Rights. Anyway, I had a reflection on something that was said earlier about. And I think it's at the heart of a lot of the appeal of Ghost Adventures and shows like that and things you've been involved in, which is, although religious observance has declined in the West, it's not an Eastern problem; it is a Western problem.
That's true.
And actually, because of decline of religious observance in the West, there are all sorts of people out there searching. And I think you're right to say that it's no point. I think I used to say things like, there's no point in me drumming my fingers on the altar waiting for people to turn up. It's not, that's not how it's going to function.
Right.
But I think I'm interested in the sort of, there's lots of blame to go around as to why that's happening, why people are so disconnected. And I think blame lies in three places. I mean, the one that everyone likes to talk about is the church. The church is partly to blame. The argument is that they've been bad at teaching, they've been bad examples, there's been abuse and all sorts of, all those terrible things that put people off. But that's not sufficient on its own. Given the evidence of this great need and desire that people have for understanding the non-material aspects of life, the deep philosophical questions, not how does life work, but why do we have it?
Right.
And I think the other two parts are, we all know the cultural part, that our culture promotes a sort of fast food, easy way. I'm sure that we're all asked the question, what's the product I can buy to make this happen?
Instant gratification.
What tablet can I be prescribed to fix all this? So the culture is partly to blame as well, partly as a result of the great progress that's been made in post-enlightenment.
Well, do you think our
in
lives
terms of
have become
fertility.
almost too comfortable, that when life gets so comfortable because of technology and convenience that we tend to just not, well, let's put it this way. Do you need to cast a spell or say a prayer when you have a smartphone that can kind of pretty much do those kinds of things for you?
I think that's part of it. I think I often talk about the anesthetic approach.
Yeah.
That we have all these things just distract us from, because actually the questions of, the reality of one day I'm going to die, which we've all seen in this pandemic, is a question nobody wants to entertain. This is at the heart of lockdown and masks and all the rest of the gumph that have been thrown at us. So there's the anesthetics applied to delay that realization that one day you're going to die no matter what you do. So that's one part of it. And the second part is, the anesthetic that we can distract ourselves from instead of the deep questions of, personal guilt because actually the third area of blame, which actually is, you see, there's very little that a person can do about the failures of the church, even if you're a bishop. Even if you're a pope, actually, there's very little you can actually do about that. This is a bit Jordan Peterson now, really. There's very little you can do about the entire culture. You can't change an entire culture. No. What's the one thing you can do something about? It's you. So also you better hope you can do something about it. Otherwise, you're really doomed. And so I think because of that anesthetic, because of our culture, we've taken away actually that it boils down to an individual choice. This is what I know that we're in heated agreement on the libertarian nature of Christianity. It's a free choice. Where it's gone wrong in the church is where they've forgotten. It's voluntary choices. Right. But now I'm a very traditional doctrinally. Everything you said about ordination of women, which is a kind of a symptom of some of these issues. I'm very traditionalist, but I've freely chosen that. Yeah. And now I've only freely chosen that because I've individually disciplined myself to pursue those questions. I started asking those questions when I was very young. And probably at the age of 17, I decided to, instead of arguing against the existence of God, argue in favor of the existence of God, because I love an argument. And actually, one of the conclusions to and this is what faith is, the leap of faith, as Kierkegaard, I think, would say, is the choice to say, well, I'm going to believe these things, and the realization that with that choice comes a lot of work, rather than it being I've chosen God and now everything's wonderful. And this is why I also am critical of evangelical Christianity. Choose Jesus, and you'll have a better car and a bigger house. That actually the real truth is choose God, and you're going to have a lifetime's hard, as they'd say in Australia, hard yakka, hard work to improve yourself in light of perfection, because you're now measuring yourself against a gold standard, instead of against the culture. God is above culture. And so actually it's about effort. And I think a lot of the time when people come to priests, to witches, or to, whatever, to shamans, whatever spiritual figures are there, often people are looking for a quick fix. And I think actually, overwhelmingly, unless people are charlatans, and they do exist, overwhelmingly the answer is there's no quick answer. There's no quick resolution to this. No. We can lay out foundations. We've received a lot from the ancients. You said earlier on, Bishop Bryan, that Christianity is not a new religion. Absolutely it's not. And we would argue it goes back to the dawn of time, and to the Israelites and to all that flowed from there. So you have to be fairly arrogant as a person, although our culture does promote arrogance. You have to be fairly arrogant to say, no, I'm gonna discover all this for myself, because I know I don't need to learn from anybody else. Anyway, I've spoken for far too long.
No, but you made some good points. And actually, Patti, do you find that in your work that you also, get people coming to you and your practices for easy fixes and solutions, and they expect witchcraft to be just sort of like this simple thing that you can just put this, maybe you can whip something up for them and they can go home and just burn a candle and it all just happens? Do you find that that's a thing that you have to constantly educate people in?
Yeah, yes, completely. Because it doesn't work like that.
Right.
No, neither does exorcism.
It doesn't work like that. Again, and whether I have to go into their basic to create something, to create change. I'm a big believer that body, mind, spirit thing, that 20,000 books around, psychology books, Christian books, religious books, spiritual books, occult books. Mine, you're never going to suppress your belief system. Period. We know that. You believe God exists. You believe you're good. Whatever that is. I could be healthy. I'm sick. I could be rich. Mine. We got that. Body, you have to take action. You can't sit there on the couch because you're not going to get a lot of done. You have to do. And spirit, to me, that's the part that people don't quite get. To me, that is where the faith comes in. Whether that spirit is you going to church and praying, or doing a spell working, or new age vision boards and affirmations, but you still just that you have to change the other two, mind and body and spirit. You have to believe it. You have to put energy, action there, and spirit. You can go through everything in your life and see what you've accomplished or made happen. You've had it. You've had the faith. You've believed it, and you've done something about it. Look at the stuff you haven't quite accomplished. You're just missing one or two. Maybe you don't really believe who you prayed to, or what you did, or that you can have it. Maybe you didn't take any action. You did sit on the couch. Or the spirit, again, that battery or faith or magic or spell or prayer or candle behind it. In witchcraft, we call that creation working dispatch. Same thing, creation, mind. Okay, I'm going to do a love spell. I'm going to do it on a Friday because that's the day of Venus. The mind, body is the working. I am carving that candle. I am stirring those herbs. Mind, body, the dispatch, the spirit. You are sending it up into the heavens with your chant, with your drumming, with your prayer, whatever that is. It's, you could use religious words, psychological words, but you can't just have, here's the magic pill. Here, light this candle. It's all better now. I think if somebody maybe had enough faith.
Sorry to interrupt. Don't you find, Patti, that often the language that people use reflects culture? So there was a time when everything was relative, because we'd had Einstein. So everyone talks about, it's all relative, so do you find that in your interactions with people who are seeking, because let's be honest, we're all dealing with people that are seeking meaning,
right?
That often it is actually about a linguistic, that's why the interaction is so important, trying to draw out the language that they're using to describe what really are eternal principles.
Yes. I mean, again, language is so important, as you guys know, in your prayers, and you have certain prayers. To me, and I do a lot of echo work, the sounds mean something. They actually do. Every vowel, every consonant, form and force. That's why if I work a chant, vowels are sacred. Whether you're going amen or om or Native American hey, or East Indian ya, opens up this crown of illumination. Here's that holy.
Oh, you can feel it. You can feel that. Yeah, absolutely.
So again, if you're going to add a vowel to that, but yes, so words themselves, the language you use, whether it's your culture, whatever. Yes.
See, I'm glad you said that. You've just given me an excuse to rib Bishop Bryan and say, you see, that's why Latin's better for the Mass.
Well, no, I mean, that's true. And honestly, I think what it is for me, I do love the Latin Mass, don't get me wrong, and I don't want to give any impression that I don't. I think what it is for me is that my Eastern inclinations and the propensity to serve people in the vernacular has always seemed to be more important than even the form. And so I think I just went in that direction. The Nicolaitan Church sort of developed into that same direction. And so we've never had a problem with the new Mass that a lot of the more traditional Catholics sometimes do, for the reason that again, it reaches people at a level to understand. Oh, that doesn't mean that people couldn't learn it.
I was only a gentle rib. I know. I don't reject the Nova Sordo.
No, but there are people that do. I mean, we talk about ourselves being traditional, but there are people that are traditional to that unhealthy standard. And
yeah, they're like almost militant about it.
The Sedevacantists are, the ones I'm thinking of.
I was just interested in what you said, Patti, because if you chant the Mass or in Latin, vowel sounds are more important. The vowels. If you ever listen to an opera in Italian, it's all vowels. With the odd consonant thrown in between to kind of let them breathe. And that's kind of like Latin. So I'm interested in that. I'd never thought of that before. So I was just interested in that reflection.
They create different things, like getting into Z's and S's is more of a fire. You could go, it's a serpent sound, or that Kundalini sound, but there's a whole magic to all those sounds we make. That's why you do in the craft a lot. You do a lot of rhyming. Rhyming creates a cadence. You guys do rhyming. You guys do cadence and cadence.
Yeah, rhyming almost goes into like a meditation.
Yeah, and certainly in the traditional form of the Mass that we say in English, it's in pentameter.
Yeah,
it's written that way deliberately. It's people think, oh gosh, isn't it? It's wonderful. I can remember this just because of tradition. No, it's because it's written in pentameter. There's a reason you remember
pentameter. It. Yeah, it's true. But yeah, no, I mean, Patti, you mentioned something there. I want to get back to. We had Darren Evans on last season. And, he's been talking about the letter Z because of the Zozo phenomenon as being sort of a sound that is somewhat on the darker or sort of, I guess, conjures lower entities or demonic entities. What do you think about that? Are you in agreement there? Have you heard anything about this? Even right down to the fact that the letter Z shouldn't even really be in our alphabet. He has some pretty interesting ideas about that. I would encourage anyone who did not listen to the show he was on last to go back into the archives and listen, because it was a very fascinating conversation. But what are your thoughts on the letter Z and the sound that it makes?
I love the letter Z. I don't want to go conjure up Zozo or anything on my little Ouija board. I don't want to go there, but Z, again, it's, if you need, how I work it, if you need a kick of energy, it's that fire sound. So again, going to that mind, body, spirit, my little 3 exercises, mind, set your thing. So whether I am talking to God, I am talking to a volcano, I'm talking to the Holy Spirit, mind, saying with this sound, I'm going to give myself energy, passion, creativity, whatever. Body, you are sitting there doing it. The Z sound is ask the little kid, was a B sound. Within 30 seconds, you will feel a tingling in the base of your spine. It'll go up and it'll give you the energy, passion, creativity, connection to God and spirit that you're looking for. There is nothing negative there.
Yeah.
It's fire,
Well, I mean,
I don't want to go to Zozo. I was in Michigan last week for the Michigan Paracon. You get off the airport. It's a big airport. I don't know where we were. I don't know what airport we were before you. Atlanta. No, that was this week. But anyway, there's a big store called Zozo. It's a dress store thing. Zozo, and I looked at. I took a picture. I was going to send it to Darren.
You should have. You should have sent it to him.
I'm going to. I'm like, I wonder how many thousands of people have walked in that store or not walked in that store and said it. But looking inside, it's just like a store. Remember, to get rid of Z. I don't get it. I don't get that, because it's the Kundalini energy. It's fire. It's power.
I wonder
it's the Holy Spirit.
But see, I wonder sometimes, like getting to that nature of the Kundalini, which can be, for those that have never had a Kundalini awakening, a terrifying experience. It can be truly terrifying. It can range from anything from feeling like you're losing your mind to even like a physiological thing like a stroke or a heart attack. It can be very oppressive if one is, well, I think a lot of it has to do with how blocked one is before it opens up. If you're really, really blocked and repressed, then I think it's going to be a lot more negative of an encounter. If you're very open and light and you cultivate these things in your life, I don't think it has to go so dangerously. But energy is energy, as you know, and energy is frequency. And frequency has a spectrum, a range of vibrations, a vibratory rate, if you will. So it stands to reason that there are different levels of these energy streams that interact with different levels of reality. And so, I would argue that the Holy Spirit, or maybe sound a little more Gnostic in this sense, the nature of, in the Jewish tradition, of the Shekinah, sort of almost the feminine aspect of God. You could almost argue that if the Gnostics were almost trying to develop the Shekinah almost into a goddess figure, not entirely, but it was there. I think trying to balance out perhaps archetypally the fact that there is this very masculine God, but unless you have the Virgin Mary, there's really not a whole lot on the feminine side, unless you're really understanding the core basics of the Holy Spirit, Sophia, Holy Sophia, which is much more prominent in the East than it is in the West, unfortunately, but it's just the way that it is. These things that can be cultivated. But the energy of the Shekinah is terrifyingly dangerous, as well as it's this beautiful awakening thing, because, think about the stories of the Ark of the Covenant. That thing wiped out like entire cities. If you touched it or looked at it the wrong way, you were toast. That energy is powerful, and I'm a firm advocate as a metaphysician outside of just my religious obligations. Metaphysically, I understand that energy misused, even if it's the holiest, most wonderful energy in the world, can be just as dangerous, perhaps even toxic, if redirected or used in the wrong way. So maybe the Z energy is just so powerful that what Darren's picking up on is that it can reach deep down into those dark aspects of nature where something like Zozo might spawn. Do you think that's a plausible explanation for it?
I think that I think that's plausible because, again, like you said, energy is energy. There's light and dark. There is good and bad. There's high vibration and low vibration. But for me, sound it's part of our holy body. But sound is sound. I don't think we can. It's all in the intent anyway. Yeah.
Well, the intent has a lot to do with it. I think that's definitely true. And the intent sort of drives our vibration. But I've always found, at least when I'm dealing with a client that might have some kind of demonic problem, whether it be just an attachment all the way to prepossession, let's say, it's not as though something is fundamentally happening with that individual outside of massive changes in their vibratory rates. And I'm kind of very like you, sort of been born being able to see that, and just have an intrinsic understanding of it. Always have, always probably will. And it's what I draw from when I do this work. But what I've noticed is exorcism, it's not driving anything out of the person. It's not like it's like going, we use these as metaphors or analogies to kind of explain to the way our minds work, a layperson, how it's working. And, that's the way the model is written in order to say it, like, you're driving a demon out. But what you're really doing is you're changing that person's vibration for them. You're helping them to do, well, actually they're doing it, but you're helping them to be able to make that step that perhaps they're not able to do on their own. Because I always say, exorcist is a facilitator. The exorcist is not the one really doing the work. The work is really done between that victim and God. It's not, the exorcist facilitates, sort of clears the air, makes it possible. It's kind of like a therapist, when you get like a husband and wife who can't get along, so they go for marriage therapy. And, the therapist isn't really going to fix the marriage. The therapist is there to create a safe space so that the marriage can heal. But it's actually the couple that does the healing. And the same thing is true here. It's between God and that person. And what I've noticed is this whole vibratory rate changes. And so you change the person's vibratory rate, the demon it literally disintegrates.
Yeah, because it changes the focus. So instead, because also the focus of an exorcism is not the devil.
No.
You know, I mean, that's the presenting symptom. And so, you know, people think, but it's actually about God. You know, the focus of the exorcism is Jesus Christ and you know, fidelity to him, which is therefore to the exclusion of dark forces. So,
yeah. Sister Mary Joan, I don't know if we've missed any other questions that I only started looking at the chats shortly after the break, but were there any there that you
There's
wrote?
a good one from Kiki. Patty, can you explain about the Akashic records and your experience with it?
Ooh, good one.
In my experience, and again, I'm sure every single person will have a completely different experience. There is this place in the heavens where information is kept. I choose to visualize it like a library. I choose, when I take people there, because I do a lot of that work, you know, to get your little records out. And to me, I choose to have it look sort of like a safe deposit box. And I choose to have what my little librarians look pretty funny. But again, it's your form, your template, whatever you're working on it. And then when I have people look in it to see what's there, and it's amazing because I see through their eyes a lot. I'll say, what's the red thing in the corner? And they'll see, oh yeah, that's a little red ball. What's a little red ball? I have them look for contracts. I have them look for, sometimes they look like parchment contracts. Sometimes they look like space aid. Sometimes they look like runes. I have them look for things like, is there an infinity sign on anything? Can you read it? Is it English? Is that right? I'm always going to pick the wrong husband, wife, lover, whatever. I'm always going to be poor. I mean, looking for stuff. You know, I don't know how much of it's psychological. I have them take out the stuff they don't like. You know, even like the obsessed guy with his girl, don't know why. And maybe, you know, if you believe in a past life or in another world, you had this thing and you said, I will love you forever instead of till death do us part. Are you bringing something with you? And I honestly, I think at least 1/3 of it is pure psychological. 1/3 of it is we are going there, at least 1/3, because I think third, just like there's the mind part. We have to go, we have to give it context. We have to give everything. Body, we are going there, we are doing it. And the spirit is, again, that faith, whether you're going to God, you're going to Jesus, you're putting it into a fire to burn it up into the universe. So in my experience, that's just how I work it. Again, because of my work, I try to not interfere with anybody's belief system, because Christians do come to me, pagans do come to me, weirdly atheists for some reason come to me.
Same here.
Yeah, exactly.
We get them all. Yeah.
So again, we're going to the library. You know, I don't need to. That's just how I work it for me.
I think that atheists are far more likely to ask for spiritual help than Christians. That's been my experience anyway. They're far more likely to contact me.
I also find that I think people very loosely use the term atheism. I really think most of them are agnostic, specifically. I don't think there's too many true atheists out there. I really don't.
Well, even Richard Dawkins admitted
he's probably
that he's kind of 7/8. Yeah, he admits to praying. He dismisses it as a kind of psychological problem, but
why
really
though?
Very few.
I mean, it's built
atheists.
into the DNA. It really is. We are made to be spiritual people, and to completely deny it does have consequences emotionally and psychologically.
I always wonder, for people who are the sort of ultra materialists. What do you say to your partner at night?
Right.
Do you say, the neurons in my brain react positively to your appearance? Like, I mean, what do you say?
You really produce a lot of oxytocin every time I see you. I mean,
you're being for a zesty session then, buddy.
You really spike my dopamine.
You really do.
What do you say?
That'll turn you on. Yeah.
Nobody in the world communicates like a bloody materialist. It's just insane.
Oh my gosh! When you said the library, Patty, it reminded me of What Dreams May Come. Did you see that movie?
What a movie
with Robin Williams. You never saw that movie? Oh, Patty, that's your homework. That's your homework. That's your homework.
I have homework. I love homework.
Yes.
I want you to see that movie, and I want you to Tell me what you thought. I think it's going to blow your mind. It's a beautiful.
Really?
It's metaphysically
Yeah.
slanted. Yes,
Okay.
but it's with Robin Williams, and actually considering how his life ended, I think
How he
it's even
passed,
more
yeah.
important to watch that movie now, because it has a powerful correlation. It's very synchronistic, if you will. Let me know what you think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
Adria has a question about what is Kundalini awakening. I think I mentioned
Yeah,
that
so
one.
I've never heard of that either, so I'm intrigued.
Kind of an Eastern thing. Patty can probably help elaborate more. It's more of an Eastern concept, mostly in Hindu mysticism, but it actually goes into Buddhism. You'll see it in Buddhism too. And essentially, it's considered to be a part of the system of qi that works through the meridian points. Same things that are generated in the theories of acupuncture and how acupuncture and acupressure work. But essentially, the spine is the central point that contains the chakra points. So if you look at the chakra points, they all go through the nervous system, the central nervous system. And there is, in the mystical notions in Hinduism, there is a spiraling energy that rises up through the spine or around the spine in the metaphysical body or the incorporeal body, what we would in my model call the spirit. Okay, so the body has the brain and the brain stem and the spinal cord. The spirit has the Kundalini, which is the spirit, the serpent energy, and it spirals up like a snake. That's why it's linked to a serpent, not because it's evil. Because remember, in the East, serpents and snakes are not considered evil like they are in the West. That's kind of more of a biblical connotation that sort of just got carried on because of the Garden of Eden, and then iconography that always sort of gives the devil a serpentine kind of appearance often. But anyway, it's sacred. The spirit, the serpent is a sacred energy, just like the dragon in Chinese culture is a powerful energy, always linked to qi and our interconnectedness with the universe. And so typically what happens as we go through life, we become blocked. These energy systems become blocked by stress, anxiety, not living your best life, all sorts of things can happen. Even not eating healthy can be enough to block these points. And if one of the great chakra points in the Kundalini get blocked, then it blocks this energy and it becomes repressed, and then it can basically shoot out in ways that are harmful. It needs to flow smoothly. So essentially, there are practices in Hinduism, in mystical Hinduism, where they use these meditations to unlock these blockages so that the spirit energy can flow as it should. Now, sometimes this will happen spontaneously, and when it does, it usually precedes an enlightenment of some kind, of spiritual awakening of some kind that can often be very terrifying for the individual who experiences it. And particularly if you're not from that worldview, because it'll happen to anybody. I mean, it's not like a Hindu thing. It's a human thing. It's just Hindus have recognized it, and Hindus have a model for working with it. Christians, not so much. Even witches, not so much, unfortunately. Although I think a lot of witches like Patti, who are more eclectic, do get into the Eastern stuff so that they can actually draw from that and help their clients and the people that they serve, and whether it be through covens or some other system, they can help them by drawing from these other systems. And that's one of the beautiful things I think of neo-paganism and witchcraft, is that you're not locked into these dogmatic boxes like a lot of the more conventional religions are, where they're not going to
steal
look
from
at
everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, and as you should, and I mean, it's enriched my life. I tell people all the time, and it really shocks people. Christianity did not mean anything to me until I became a Buddhist. When I came back to Christianity, then my understanding as a Buddhist is what gave it value and meaning. I was not capable of really, truly appreciating it before making that step. And the tools that Buddhism gave me made that possible. But that was my path. I'm not saying that everyone needs to go become a Buddhist in order to understand Christianity. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that was my path. But drawing from outside sources sometimes is what helps. And, we should never lock ourselves in boxes. So that's what the Kundalini is. I don't know, Patty, is there anything else that you might be able to add to that? I'm not sure if that was a complete answer.
No, that was perfect. That was beautiful. I got nothing more.
Okay. But yeah, it's fascinating. And you'll even feel like a little pop. It's like energy. It can make you feel like you're falling out of your body. It will sometimes produce a lot of out of body experiences. Or the classic witches rides, which are, the sleep paralysis experience. It can do or work in sympathy with those kinds of experiences. And those things can be typically terrifying to people who are not trying to have them.
I've had sleep paralysis 3 times in my life, and yeah, it was pretty.
You didn't like it, huh?
No, didn't care.
Didn't care for it at all.
No. I mean, you're wide awake, but you can't move. And
yeah, I've had it a couple of times.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Right.
Have you had it, Patti?
The 2 times I couldn't really explain. The one time I think was because I was absolutely exhausted. I had pulled probably 24 hours at work and came home and just laid out. And I think that was probably the cause of that one. The other 2, I can't explain.
Yeah. Have you had it, Patti? Have you had experience with it?
Not really. I mean, I've done gentle Kundalini work, like Kundalini yoga, where you're gently awaking and things.
Yeah.
But I've never had a big, weird experience of anything like that, awakening. I've had different kinds of awakenings, but not that.
You know why I think that's true? Because I think that you've never suppressed anything. You've always just worked with the energy.
There you go.
Yeah. I think these shocking Kundalini experiences that wake people up, it's because they're being a little apathetic. You have never been apathetic in this work. So, you're doing exactly what you need to do to keep it flowing. But it's been wonderful having you here with us. We're actually at the end of the show. Before we leave, could you just tell the audience where they can find you? I think most of our audience knows where to find you, but
everywhere.
Yeah.
My website, which is like a hub, is pattinegri.com. Pattinegri.com. You can get all the social medias. Facebook is Patti Negri Psychic Medium, the one with the blue check. Twitter is Patti Negri. Instagram, I have been hacked. Until I get it back.
Yeah, we saw that.
I am hacked. They are contacting people. They are contacting my people and asking for money. I've never done that. I will never do that. It's been almost 3 weeks. So
oh man.
If it seems fishy, it is. Trust your intuition. Right. I'm not going to ask. But again, I've got lots of events and things coming up. So follow me on social media. But I just want to get back with you guys. It's been too long. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, Patti, anytime. I consider you to be one of those guests where you have an open invitation. You can come on anytime you want. You don't even have to wait for me to say, hey, look, we got some dates we'd like to fill. If you just want to come on, you just come on. Just let me know. You've now got access to this room. This show is almost every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, when we're in season. And, pop on into the room whenever you feel like it.
Okay, I'll forewarn you first. I hate uninvited guests.
Oh well, so. you're the kind of uninvited guest that I like.
Because you're never not invited.
You're always invited. Yeah. But thank you so much. I do appreciate you coming on, and I want to thank Father Chris and Sister Mary Joan for being here this evening. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It's been such a wonderful, wonderful show, and honestly, I can't really say any more than that. I mean, anytime Patti's on, it's just a blessing. Now, we will not be having a show next week. We're going. I'm not going to be in town, so we'll be returning the following Tuesday. Okay, so make sure that you check the schedule, and that's always on the YouTube channel, and you can also find it on the Nicolayan Network. But we'll be back 2 weeks on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We hope to see you then. God bless, take care, and we'll see you out there in the ether.